If this is your first time listening to this podcast, I can assure you that this podcast will be very helpful for you in practicing your listening skills. So this podcast is for people who want to practice their listening, but who still can't understand native speakers when they speak at normal speed or when they speak with other native speakers. If you can't yet understand native speech like that, then this podcast is perfect for you. Okay, so in this episode, I'm going to talk about two different topics. I'm going to talk about breakfast, and I'm going to talk about camping. So let's move on to our second subject for today, which is camping. This is another subject that I really like because I really like camping. Simple as that. I'm American, of course, so I'm going to speak to you from an American perspective. Camping is a great pastime in the U.S. Pastime is kind of like an activity, entertainment, hobby, something like that. Camping is definitely a popular thing in the U.S. I think most Americans have probably been camping at least once in their life. That might not be an accurate statistic, but in my opinion, I think at least half of Americans have been camping once in their life. When I was younger, I went camping with my family and some family friends every summer. So starting from the time when I was probably 1 or 2 years old until the time when I was around 16 or 17, we went camping every year, I think, practically every year. And we would usually go in June, July, or August when the weather was really nice. And we went to many different campsites, I should say. A campsite is just a place where people can camp. Usually you have to pay money, but it's not a ton of money. You can usually afford it. It's not too expensive. So we went to many campsites when I was younger, and some of the campsites were more crowded, and they had more people, and some campsites were more remote. When something is remote, that means that there aren't many people there, right? It's a little less crowded. It's a little farther away from society. Remote really means that it's kind of far away from the rest of society. So I've camped in remote places and in places closer to the city. But regardless of where I went, I always liked it, and I still like it. But I don't go very often anymore, unfortunately. In other countries, camping is not a very big thing. I know this. I've talked to students from many places, and in many countries, camping is simply not an activity that the population enjoys. For example, in Mexico, very few people go camping. This is not a very popular activity, and I think many Mexicans would feel unsafe going camping, right? They don't want to be far away from civilization, far away from their city. That would strike a little fear in them, probably. Not all Mexicans, but some of them. So I looked at Google Maps recently, and I was looking for campsites in Mexico around a pretty popular city, and I could barely find 2 or 3 campsites within 2 hours driving from this really big city. And I was really surprised because in the US, if you Google campsites on Google Maps, you'll see campsites everywhere, right? There are so many options for Americans to go camping. So it was a surprise for me to see this on Google Maps in Mexico. So camping is much more popular in the US than it is in many other countries. I know it's also popular, I think, in many Asian countries and maybe in Northern Europe, but I'm not sure where else camping is popular. In terms of my experience or my love for camping, I would say that the reason why I like camping so much is the spirit of camping. That's what I'll call it, the spirit of camping, right? What I'm talking about is the act of leaving civilization, leaving the city, and going into nature and surviving and being there without a lot of appliances and tools and electronics and everyday things, just being there with your tent and your fire and of course a few tools and just enjoying the atmosphere, enjoying the environment. For me, this is a really fantastic feeling. It's relaxing and it's fun. I think this is actually really fun. I like doing activities when I camp. For example, I love going hiking when I camp. I love going fishing, for example. These are activities that you can enjoy in nature, in the peace and quiet. They're really fun, in my opinion. Maybe some of you might think that fishing or hiking is boring, but for me, I don't know. They're really fun activities, and I especially like doing them because I'm in nature. I think that's the main component of the spirit of camping, is being in nature, right? We don't often spend time in nature because most of us live in cities. So when we get the opportunity to go into nature, it's really nice. It's something different, right? I think that this is the reason why I like camping so much. I'm not a great camper. I'm not very good at building a fire or pitching the tent, right? When you pitch a tent, this means that you put the tent up, right? You put it together, right? So I'm not good at pitching the tent or building the fire or doing a lot of other stuff, but I'm happy to help the other people accomplish these tasks, right? I really should learn to build fires and pitch tents better because I want to have this skill, but I've just never paid too much attention to this. I'm always the one helping, not the one leading the effort. But yeah, I really like sitting around the campfire at night as well. This is probably the funnest part of the camping trip, is when it's dark and you're with your friends or family and you're sitting around the campfire and you're roasting marshmallows. So, we're about done for today. So, thank you for listening to today's episode.